Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're about to start this presentation on the WR switch off. It's being hosted by myself, James Drake, Managing Director of Eclipse Wholesale, and Andy Sayle, who's the Broadband Portfolio Manager for Zen Internet. Okay then, so I guess let's just give a little bit of background onto why we're here. We're going to be talking about the WR switch off and what it means for you, for your customers, what it means for Eclipse and our suppliers in Zen. Zen's got a great deal of experience in this, having been at the forefront of working and utilising some of the products we're going to talk about today, and I guess having a large base, so that data set is going to be crucial in terms of what we are discussing, really. So yeah, I think everybody knows it's coming. We're going to have a bit of a Q&A throughout the session, so hopefully somebody is monitoring the Q&A, fingers crossed, but we will be taking questions. So yeah, I'm going to go straight into the first slide and over to Andy. So this is a slide that's going to talk through where the WR switch off is currently on that presentation.
Thanks, James. Thanks for the opportunity to come along and speak to your customers, your partners today. Yeah, the WR switch off. So we'll start initially just by giving you the background, let you know a little bit about like the timeline of what's happened and when things have happened and how it'll continue over the next couple of years. So if we go back to 2017, end of 2017, November, BT Group announced that they wanted to close down the PSTN network by 2025, the end of 2025. Off the back of that, obviously Openreach sell a lot of products that connect into that PSTN network, so they started to consult on how they could do that. So in May, they started that consultation process, and then by the end of the year, they put forward their plan on what they were going to do. And that plan was to initially stop selling products that connect to the PSTN network. So we're talking about WLR3 and all the broadband products that rely on WLR3 and ISDN. So FTTC, ADSL in the way that we know it today, G.fast in the way we know it today as well. All of those products rely on WLR lines. If the WLR is no longer there, then they'll cease to work. So yeah, stop selling those products was their first step, and then turn off the network 2025. So the Openreach realised that this was a 7-year project. There was a lot of things that they needed to work out. There's a lot that needed to be tested and make sure that it was going to work as expected. So they announced 2 trial exchanges initially, Salisbury and Mildenhall. So in Salisbury, they wanted to test moving to an area that only had FTTP coverage. And in Mildenhall, they wanted to test a town that was mainly covered by Sagia. We'll talk a little bit about what Sagia and FTTP are as we go through the slides. But for now, Sagia is a replacement product for FTTC. FTTP is full fibre broadband, as I'm sure you all know. Those trial exchanges, so Salisbury was the first one, and we couldn't order anything apart from FTTP in Salisbury since December 2020, so more than 2 years ago now. And May 21 was the stop sell date for Mildenhall, where they no longer sell WLR. It was Sagia that was available. So that's, again, we've just hit 2 years on that, and the two years is the point in which they want to turn the network off. So we're in the process of testing decommissioning the WLR network in Salisbury and Mildenhall right now. April 2023. So the next step is September this year. September 2023 is when the stop sell process that we tested back in 2020, 2021 in Salisbury and Mildenhall takes effect nationwide. So from September this year, WLR will not be able to be ordered anywhere in the UK. So, and that means you won't be able to order any of the associated products. So you won't be able to order FTTC, you won't be able to order ADSL, you won't be able to order G.fast in the way you've been doing before now. Roll forward another couple of years and we get to the nationwide switch off of the PSTN network. December 2025. So that's kind of the timeline. It's turn off the tap, don't sell anymore, and then a couple of years later, turn off the network.
And I'm just going to come off the slide, Andy, onto a bit of a conversational piece, Nick. 'Cause I think this is the real nub of the matter, isn't it? Is we're 2/3 of the way through that that timescale now. What are you seeing from Zen's perspective in terms of impact upon customers? I guess people's desire to get this done and get it over the line, to have access to these products. I guess the whole spectrum is there. So let's start with the first one. What have you seen in your customer base since that April 23 Mildenhall switch off? Has it impacted you guys at all?
So Zen as a whole, we've not seen a huge impact, or really any impact, to be perfectly honest. And that's for one reason, and that we were prepared. So all of that, we've contacted every single one of our customers to advise them what was going on. We've done that through emails. We've had actual physical letters going out to customers. We've been speaking to customers on the telephone. And we've had various degrees of engagement with customers. Some customers have upgraded. Most of the time, take Salisbury, for example, with FTTP, customers are really happy to upgrade because they're getting faster speeds, they're getting a more reliable connection. They're not reliant on the old technology anymore, and so they can really buy into it. In Mildenhall, slightly different in that there's not really a step change in the level of connectivity they're getting. Yeah. And so it's been around educating customers around the benefits of what IP voice can provide them and how that can benefit their business, or the fact if it is we've got a lot of consumer customers at Zen as well, and in the consumer context, it's around no longer having to pay for your phone line. It's still some copper there, so it's not you save £15-20 a month, but there is a saving to be had in switching to Sugea, and so that's really helped. But it's about managing the notifications, making sure customers are fully engaged and aware of what's going on, and then once we got to the switch off, we've migrated more or less all the customers. There's a handful of customers that we hadn't migrated yet, but we've been engaged with them, and so where it's come to sort of the degradation of service, it's not a surprise to customers. There are reasons that they've not switched over yet, for either there's complexity in their network or in the kind of products they've got, or there's other mitigating circumstances.
Okay.
So we've been working with them and OpenReach. With some exceptions, OpenReach have extended the period of time for some customers because of valid exceptions. OpenReach have an exception process. They're very, very strict on what they will apply an exception to.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not we're not ready, give us an exception. It's we're not ready because of these reasons. Those reasons are around linked to protecting vulnerable customers, or linked to protecting critical national infrastructure. And then the OpenReach are willing to make the exceptions in those valid cases. But we're talking ones and two customers.
Okay, yeah.
We're really small numbers.
So don't expect that to be the norm going forward.
Absolutely not. Okay. No, there'll be, we'll move forward. And I think it's the important thing is understanding your customers, what they're doing, how they're using connections, what problems they've got. And then by really understanding them, you can explain to them the consequences of what's happening in the context of their business, not generic. And then that allows them helps them buy into what's going on as well, and put together their own plan on how to migrate across.
Okay, and I think just turning that dial slightly forward, I'll see if I can get the screen back on a multitask at the same time, but turning that dial slightly forward to September 23 then, which I guess is the next milestone, do you think that the September milestone is going to impact customers in a way that they will see? I mean, we talk about the service being degraded, we talk about not being able to order those products in exchanges where they are now, classed as a WR-free exchange or a full fibre exchange. Do you think people are going to notice that?
So, yeah, undoubtedly. So the stop sell impacts new orders, it impacts switching between providers. So if you've got FTTC and you think, well, it's not going to impact me, I just want to switch to this other provider, or I want to, you want to switch like for like, you're not going to be able to do that. So that will impact customers.
And also impact people commercially as well.
Yeah.
A lot of the people on this, I presume on this webinar today, is going to be people who are reselling these products. So if you have the inability to start not like-for-liking products, I mean, that's going to take away some commercial proposition straight away.
Yeah, it potentially does. Yeah, exactly. So at Zen, we've seen that on any given month, it's 93, 94% of the orders we get off of Sagia or FTTP now. So it's only a minority of customers that are ordering ADSL or FTTC. But that 7% in roll forward in 4 months now, that 7% of customers wouldn't be able to place an order. So it's going to have an impact. It's not everyone by any means. And the customers that are ordering FTTC, it'd be most of them, if not all of them, could have ordered at Sagia.
Yeah, okay.
And so it was, and the commercially, the difference between FTTC and Sagia on the one-off costs to switch a customer are comparable. There's very little difference there. The difference comes on and then you would make typically the Sagia will be a little bit cheaper, so it's better to switch a customer onto Sagia because you're not having to pay for WLR. And I guess part of OpenReach's the technique or the approach to getting customers to migrate is commercial, in that the price of WLR over the last few years has skyrocketed compared to the years before that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you just stick on what you've got, then it's going to cost you more than if you did make the switch.
Well, I think it's interesting. We've not, we're going to expand upon this as we go through the slide deck, but I think one of the things I keep thinking about is, we've all just been through a batch of inflationary pressures the last couple of months.
Yeah.
Is that going to continue? Most probably, because inflation's not coming down. And, some of these products are going to be more susceptible to those inflationary rises than others. So I think, we're talking about technology, we're talking about commercials, we're talking about opportunity. But I think if you can, we all strive to add value to the products we sell. If we can mitigate some of these issues with our customers, I mean, it makes sense all round, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's the inflationary pressures. And then on the copper network, as customers move off it, the cost for OpenReach to run that network remains broadly the same. They've still got to maintain that copper while they've got customers, and they're going to have less customers to share it out across. And so every line is going to just increase without them applying any sort of premium on there. It's just the economics of it mean less customers to bear the cost of maintaining the network. It's going to go up.
Yeah.
So switch sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. So just because we're moving into talking about products now, let's get on to the next slide, which actually shows the products that we must be all know are there, but let's visualize them on a slide deck and let's talk through them. It seems obvious sometimes when we talk about ADSL to FTTC to FTC to Sagia, whatever those variations in this product set are. But I think for me, I've worked in this industry a long time, and I think about the products are robust, they're mature. There's no real reason that I can think of. I mean, we can all objection handle customers' requests, but for me as a consultant in this industry, I can't think of any objections that actually are valid that much anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. A mature product. I think FTTP, Zen's been selling FTTP for 13 years now. So since late 2009, beginning 2010, so when we connected our first trial customers, and we've been selling FTTP every month ever since. Sagia, Sagia uses the same underlying connectivity technology, VDSL. It's delivered in a slightly different way because you don't need that phone line, but that's a very mature technology. And Sagia on its own, we've been selling that for years as well now. The FTTP Sagia, very mature. ADSL, we all know the limitations of ADSL. There are some parts of the UK where ADSL is the only option or one of the few options, but that's latest data from Think Broadband shows that it's 97% plus of the UK has access to fibre broadband in one form or another.
Oh wow, that's quite amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's a very small minority, and that 3% that's kind of left, that's just going to get smaller as Openreach roll out FTTP. That's a lot of those ADSL lines in a business context are in town centres.
Yeah,
it's exchange only lines. And they're ripe for FTTP coverage. So over the next 2 or 3 years, they're going to disappear as well before we get to that PSTN switch off. So we're going to, by the time the network is being turned off, fibre is going to, in one form, whether it's Sagia or FTTP, full fibre, is going to cover the vast majority, if not all, of the UK. Just a small number left.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, looking at these products, it's always the same. I think if we get bring us back onto screen again. I think if we think about those minority of customers, which we're all going to have in our estates, I mean, what do you think the horizon looks like for them? I mean, do you think that they are going to continue to only be served by ADSL? Do you think there's going to be a rollout, or do you think actually it's going to take maybe some of the alternative networks who are running fibre out there to complement the Openreach services that are being running?
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely going to be a mix. So it'll be Openreach expanding their footprint. There's hundreds of altnets out there. Yeah, and that might consolidate down over the next few years, but the ones that will be left will be the ones that have got something unique. That could be coverage, so they're covering areas that nobody else is doing. They'll give them a great opportunity. We've got 5G, so 5G is obviously covering it, and that's okay. There's arguments on whether that's as good as fixed full fibre connectivity, but it's definitely nobody's going to argue that 5G is not better than ADSL.
No.
So yeah, we've got a mix of, and then you've got fixed wireless as well, other fixed wireless technologies. So yeah, it could be that yes, you can't get FTTP or Sagia from Openreach, but you'll certainly get something from somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess going back to the slide deck with those products on there, we've kind of put a catch-all on of cloud comms. I guess if we just quickly sort of talk through. We all know what that's going to be. That's going to be some type of hosted VoIP solution. When we talk about it at Eclipse, we now think about multi extension, single use as well. If we're gonna go through a process of identifying customers in our estate who have got voice on a PSTN, then when we move them to Sagia, they're going to need a voice replacement service. So single user, single license, something along those lines. So these are all products that are in the estate. I'm going to move on to the next slide, which basically is a bit of research and marketing that Zen have done, and we have access to and happy to distribute to people either after this if they want it, or we can have it in a direct one-to-one conversation. But this is the I do always think about the Great British Bake Off, but this is actually the Great British Switch Off, which talks about some of the things we're talking about on here today. And have you gone through this, Andy? Have you seen this? Document?
Yeah, this document. So back in 2020, we went out and surveyed businesses up and down the UK. Small businesses, medium businesses, even large enterprises. And then in 2022, we went out and surveyed them again, and it gave us a picture of how things have changed over those couple of years. So in 2020, we saw that no one was really aware of what was going on with the switch off. Some people had maybe heard something but hadn't really paid any attention. 2022, awareness of the switch off had improved dramatically, but there was still very few businesses that had a plan. And what that was telling us, I guess, is really people know it's coming, but they don't know what they need to do, and they need some help. They need support.
Yeah.
And there's an opportunity for us as an industry and for partners to go out there and speak to their customers and say, look, you'll have heard of this. You've either heard it from us, or you've seen it in the news, or you might have seen it in some industry press. But what does that mean for you as a business, and to take them through and help them put a plan together, explain to them what the products are, the replacement products, the timelines. And the best people to do that are the organisations that have got a relationship with those customers, because they understand what their needs are, not just the products that they've got.
Yeah.
They've got products, and it might be they're using some of those features, but it's it's to achieve something, and there are other ways of achieving the same thing. So you don't need to take an identical product. They need to take a product that's going to meet their requirements, and there's loads of different ways of doing that. And the best people to understand who they are the ones that have got the relationship with the customer. So it might be they've got, they had ISDN2. It might be that there's some a UC solution is a great replacement. They might have had tens of different channels, or they might have had 2 or 3 different WLR lines, one for their phone line, one for their broadband. They could consolidate that into a gigabit FTTP circuit and then take a unified comms solution over the top with lots of multiple different seats. I don't know, but by having a relationship with your customer, you can get into that. And I guess what we've seen through the Great British Switch Off paper, and also speaking to our customers, is that they're very welcome and very open to having those conversations.
Well, I think the key for me is and this is the point to get across on the webinar today, is to say that research paper is available. It's in I believe it's in a white label format. Somebody can nod at me who's not. Yeah. So we can distribute this amongst the people in here, and you can utilize it with your own customer base, because some of our well-known competitions out there at the moment having these conversations, maybe not without the documentation, maybe with a different agenda to yours, a different agenda to ours, but we are seeing more customers now knocking on our door saying, we've been contacted by X, is this correct? So I think if we are there with documentation complementing what we are saying, it just reinforces the message. But coming back to Andy's point about identifying what the customer's requirements are, he must have done this before, because it takes us ideally onto the next slide, which is about just basically understanding the customers and the use of the current products. I think we're all guilty of this in this industry, because consumption is high, product volumes are high, but when was the last time we actually ever really engaged with this estate? I guess that's the question. If you have an estate out there that, like most of us, is a hands-off approach, a reactive approach, and customers, you may not know what these customers are utilizing these products for. But I guess is the key question really, I guess, especially if we're moving to a full fiber, full fiber product set, are they utilizing voice within that PSTN network? Is that the key question?
Yeah, and it'll vary for everyone. The approach that we took was we broke all of our full customer base down into different cohorts to understand how they were using, what they were doing, what kind of products they had, what kind of industry they were in, whether they were consumers or business, what kind of, if they were vulnerable customers, if they were involved with critical national infrastructure, and then put together a plan on how to tackle each of those different types and tick each one off. We started with the easiest customers, so we went for customers that had broadband, they weren't making calls, they didn't need a voice solution, so we could just switch them to FTTP and didn't need to worry about voice. And then the next cohort was customers that were making calls, and we could provide them with an IP voice solution.
I'll bring a slide back up that shows those cohorts.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, yeah. So and the customers making calls, customers not making calls. We looked at what kind of CPE customers have got. So, did they need an upgrade?
Yeah.
Do they need devices to support their IP voice? Did they not? Could they get FTTP, or could they just get SAGIA? All of these elements were sort of part of it, and we've got in Zen we have an all IP migration manager, a lady called Jodie, and she's sliced up the customer base into these cohorts, arranged the communication plan, been contacting each of these cohorts every month, explaining about what's going on, the timeline for them, and yeah, I think, but it comes back. I guess it comes back to, as you were saying, understanding your customers, speaking to your customers, engaging with them, and that's the number one. The number one thing, if you take it away, is approach this from a customer perspective.
Yeah, and it was interesting when I saw your execution, the plan execution there. I think one of them was voluntary and like mandatory migration. So has Zen gone through a process of actually telling customers they will be moved? I guess not against their wishes, but they'll be moved unless they say something, or they.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've got voluntary. Is the easiest way to think about that is customer can upgrade to FTTP, or they can switch to SAGIA, and they just call us up and say, "Please, can I do that?" And we move them, and absolutely we'll support them in doing that. And we'd love all of our customers to do that straight away. We've then got some customers that are not quite as engaged or not as proactive in their approach, and we've contacted those customers saying, yeah, we're going to migrate you to this product at this time. Do you want to take a voice service? Do you not want to take a voice service? If you've got any concerns about the approach, contact us and we can opt you out, or we can do something around it. Generally, we find that customers don't opt out. They're very happy to do it. We're not changing any contractual terms to customers when we do this.
Okay, interesting.
So we just we write to them and say, the contract you've got today will remain the same. You will switch to here, so they'll pay the same price. They'll have the same terms and conditions. If they've got 6 months left on their minimum term contract, they stick with 6 months. We don't extend it, and so there's nothing really to lose from a customer's perspective. It's as is, just delivered in a different way, and customers really buy into that. But it gives customers also the opportunity to go, actually, if I accept the new terms and conditions and I take these extra things, it might work out a bit cheaper, or I might get a faster service, and it helps facilitate that engagement with the customer. So we find that customers are generally very happy to do it, and some of them even want to go further and upgrade or take additional services at the same time. Okay,
interesting. I think that's it's a key point, really. I think for the people watching today to take away is that kind of approach where, and we've seen it from the top level with OpenReach, where they've got to a process where they've said it's going to be mandatory. We can't just rely on people volunteering to do this now. And we'll come on to the final slides and a bit of a Q&A. If anybody's got any questions for us, start prepping those. I'm sure we can answer some questions before we wrap up today. But I think that mandatory approach, we may want to think about that throughout our estates and seeing if we qualify out, like we've shown in some of these slides, the process and the usage of these services, and we might all need to think about, will there be some rationalization in there? Because if these have been unmanaged services, you may ask a customer what they're used for, and they might say nothing. But I'm always a great believer, I'm sure you're the same, Andy, of having, I guess, our destiny and our revenue streams in our own hands. We don't really want to be having customers who are buying products that aren't utilised unnecessarily. Yep. So I think that it is a big project, but I think ultimately if people undertake it, they should be able to set these revenue streams up for quite a long period of time in the future. These are future-proof products. They're not products we're talking about with a short shelf life. Yeah. I mean, even when you mentioned 5G, I was thinking of 6G straight away, exactly. Which, there is conversation around. So I think, let's bring it on to the last slide deck, which might just be a thank you. But I think, let me just click through and see what is on here. So I think what we're trying to get across here is, and we're imparting a lot of information in a short period of time, I guess, is really that Zen has a lot of experience in this field, as Andy's demonstrated in some of the conversation we've had today. These guys are committed to this process. They are, like we said on the slide, experts. They are doing this on a daily basis, and it's a combination of, I guess, product availability, customer requirements, and I guess where you are really in your cycle with your own customer cycle of having conversations with those customers about what their businesses are doing, where the products are. Yeah, so absolutely. No different really from anything else. I guess this is just a little bit more expedited due to the urgency of what's happening around us with the infrastructure in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on. I couldn't have said that any better myself.
Oh, thanks, Andy. Yeah. So, any questions? Somebody is typing something.
Yeah, while they're typing that, I think one of the things that often isn't, it's not as appreciated as it could be, and that's that there are organisations out there that, whether they're altnets or just other communication providers, that see this as an opportunity to win customers.
Yeah.
And so if we're not working with our own customers to get them upgraded, we risk somebody else coming along and having that conversation with them and stealing our customer. So you mentioned about speaking to customers, you might find out that there's some rationalisation, there's some lines that are perhaps not used anymore. And I guess it's better to have that conversation with the customer and understand that and get them onto the right products and services with us than it is someone else to have that conversation and we just lose the customer.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think we shouldn't be worried or about having the conversation and the potential loss of revenue as a result. We should see it as a retention activity, as a way of keeping our customers.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, my like I just said there, I'm a great believer in being in charge of the destiny of our revenue streams. I think anybody who wants to run a business where they're not in control of what customers are purchasing from you, and there's an apathetical approach, I think then that they are at the risk of churn from all of the products we have in our estates. But we've got a question coming here. This is from Paul. Thanks, Paul. Do we need to have replaced all of our FTTC connections with full fibre by 2025, or will Openreach only switch off FTTC if there is a fibre alternative?
That's a really good question. So, all FTTC connections don't need to have switched to full fibre by 2025. But the FTTC connections that have access to full fibre need to have switched to full fibre by 2025.
Okay.
So if we've got an address that can get full fibre, you migrate the customers to full fibre, or the risk being switched off. The alternative is Sagia. So where FTTC, if you have FTTC and there's no FTTP available, we need to have migrated our customers to Sagia in that time period. So we can't leave customers on WLR and FTTC because the WLR will be switched off. And when the WLR is switched off, the FTTC will stop working. So we need to migrate all of our FTTC customers. It's just to either FTTP or Sagia, not all of them to FTTP.
Okay.
I think the Openreach is planning to get to 25 million FTTP addresses by the end of 2026.
And where are they at currently?
They're at about 10.5 million at the moment.
So double, really, then.
So they've got exactly, more than double it over the next 3 years or so. 25 million is about 80% of premises, I think, in the UK. So the vast majority of the UK will have access to FTTP through Openreach. There'll be additional premises by alternative network providers like City Fibre or Hyperoptic or GigaClear or someone like that. But yeah, the Openreach are going to cover most homes.
Okay, so I think the answer there, Paul, for you is simply yes, mate. I think you're going to have to either have your customers on Sagia or an FTTP product that's replacing them. Just as you answer that question, what do Openreach class as a full FTTP exchange? Is it 75% or more?
Yep, 75% or more, exactly. So 75. So when Openreach 12 months before they expect to get to 75%, they announce a FTTP priority stop sell. So that's they will not sell anything even before the national stop sell. So there's hundreds of exchanges across the country now where if FTTP is available, they'll only sell FTTP. 75% is the threshold.
Okay, cool. Exactly. Any more questions? Just wait and see if anything else comes through that is pertinent or we don't think we've repeated during the...
Oh, there we are. There's another one coming in, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a clear process to migrate to Sagia and migrate the associated phone number to VoIP? And then this is from Richard. Thanks, Richard. Do you kick off a number port first? Or so I think this is integrated number porting. Are we talking about?
Yeah, there's two options. So first one is integrated number port. So you need to, first of all, obviously you need to have an agreement set up with someone for your voice, like Eclipse.
Yep.
You need to tell the voice provider that you're going to port the number across. You don't need to actually port the number, but you need to get it sort of ready on the platform that the number's going to end up at. You then place a integrated number port order. So this is, you place an order for your Sagia connection. You say you want to do an integrated number port. You tell Openreach via the order where you want the number to be ported to. So that's the details of the VoIP platform. And at the same time as the phone line converts to a Sagia line, the number ports. So Sagia line goes live, number ports across to the voice platform, and that's an integrated number port, and that should give you a sort of a seamless transition. You only need to place one order with OpenReach via Eclipse, and it all happens. Obviously, the voice platform, though, it's really worth stressing, the voice platform needs to be ready to receive the number, otherwise the number will be ported across, and if it's not set up, the calls aren't going to work. So you still have to do all get the voice side of things ready. The other option is you place a Sajir order as normal, and then you do a number port. Once you get the confirmation of the activation date, you just place a number port in the way you've always placed a number port, and get it to port across on the same day. So you have 2 orders in flight, a broadband Sajir order and a number port order, and you manually get the two to align with each other. That's the way we've been doing it for our own customers. So we've migrated tens of thousands of those customers in that way, and it works really well. It's obviously a little bit more work to do, but you're fully in control of it yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
And the integrated number port process, less hassle, but it only works for numbers that were originally BT range numbers. So if it was a TalkTalk number or a Virgin Media number that was migrated across onto BT's network, that won't work because they can't handle the port process because it's not their number. And it only works with WLR lines. So if it was an MPF line, so the kind of phone line that TalkTalk provides or Vodafone might provide, wouldn't work. So you've then got to have an integrated number port process internally, and you've got to have a normal number port process, and you've got to pick the right one for the right scenario.
Yeah.
So we made the decision that since we were going to have 2 processors, we just decide to go with one and do that for everything. It's a little bit more work on each order, but it meant it was more repeatable, and we can build up a lot more experience in doing it the same way every time.
So I think that's a long answer.
It's a long answer.
It's a long answer. So Richard, the key to that is yes is the simple answer. Is it a complicated process? Yes. Is there only a finite amount of people currently doing it? Yes is the answer to that as well. But what I must do is I'll pick this up with you offline, and we'll get you a process and tell you what it is we're doing.
That's the way of doing it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Mark Henderson, thanks Mark for the question. Mark says, do Eclipse offer VoIP for small businesses, 1 to 5 users? Yes, we do, Mark. We're not currently going through that on this presentation. I'm quite happy to provide you with some information. I think for me as a business owner and a strategist in these product sets, I kind of think about it really as twofold. I think of it about them as SOHO, people kind of moving from a PSTN, let's say a PSTN network, who would need an upgrade to VoIP because they're going to be losing their voice element from the PSTN. And then I think about PBX type customers where they're maybe going to need a hosted VoIP solution. So we're currently about to launch a new single user or small user type product. So I'll get you some information out for that, Mark. So don't worry. I think that's it for the questions. So I'm gonna wrap up because I appreciate everybody's had enough of me and Andy most probably.
Definitely.
I think there's some salient points really to draw from today. I think I've moved back into the slides, unfortunately, but yeah, I think there's some really salient points which are around. Just to be honest, I think working out customers and what they've actually qualifying, almost matrixing out those customers, what they use them for, finding out if there's any customers who are easy to move. I guess it's the low hanging fruit kind of process that we would use for a normal sales process. I think strategizing what your product set is going to be. I mean, at Eclipse, we would love all of our customers to be on FTTP if possible, just because, we're some of us are cynics when it comes to product launches, but we were told many moons ago by OpenReach that faults would be significantly reduced on the FTTP product. We actually see that, it is significantly reduced. We do see a lot less faults come in, and also I think you get a different type of fault on a full FTTP product. It's not necessarily speed; it's more on or off. It's black or white, as opposed to those kind of older FTTP C ADSL products were more not as robust, not as much bandwidth in there. I think set out your product strategy in terms of what you're going to do with your voice replacement services for people who need to retain voice, whether that includes cellular as well if there's no upgrade path. But I think the key for this really is enter into the dialogue with your customer base. Enter into the dialogue with your vendor and your chain within that vendor stack. Eclipse, our partners, we can all assist in this. And I think just get this message out to the customer base now because, like I say, competitors are out there talking about this already. And I don't think they're doing it as well armed as we are. So they're maybe having a conversation with a ulterior motive of just getting customers flipped onto products that they want to sell, not necessarily speaking to the customers and seeing what the customers need. So I think that's my wrap on it, really. Have you got anything you'd like to add, Andy?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think approach this as an opportunity, not a threat. It's a great way of building engagement with your customers. It's a great excuse to speak to your customers, and for them to see you as a trusted expert and to re-establish the relationship with customers that have perhaps not been as engaged over time. So yeah, absolutely. So speak to your customers, understand your customers, approach this as a new opportunity, and as part of your sort of business as usual, and you'll have no problems at all.
And I think move it to a reactive kind of approach as opposed to a proactive approach to a reactive approach. A lot of the time in telecoms and the telephony industry, we've literally just sat back and waited for customers to say, "Is this product available?" Data sets are available in terms of what's going to be rolled out, absolutely. Exchanges, when exchanges are turned off. I think maybe keep looking at the data and working out when your customers may possibly have these products. So I think that's it then, really. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for attending. It's been great having you all on here and answering some questions and talking about these products. A recording of this webinar will be sent out. So if there's any of your teams who weren't able to join or you weren't able to stay for the full duration, then you can watch this back at your leisure or take the bits you particularly find interesting and useful. But yeah, please engage with us post this, and thank you very much for your time.